Welcome everyone to an evening of books and fun with the Renegades of Middle Grade. I'm Angie Talley from the Country Bookshop in Southern Pines, North Carolina. The Country Bookshop has been serving Central North Carolina for more than 70 years. And one of the things we love the very most in the world is working with authors. We are so thrilled to be able to call ourselves part of the Renegades of Middle Grade. This is the second year we've been able to work with the Renegades on this book tasting event, and we're so happy to be here tonight to be part of this thing. So my name is Angie, and throughout the evening I'll be posting a link in the chat if you're interested in purchasing any books from these amazing authors. Country Bookshop in Southern Pines, North Carolina will be happy to do that. Thank you and welcome, and I will turn it over to Erin.
Wait, Angie, before you turn it over, quick question. Was it Independent Bookstore Week Day or something recently?
Saturday was Independent Bookstore Day, and it's also Children's Book Week.
So it's like the perfect week for people to buy books.
It's absolutely
from
perfect.
Country Bookshop.
This is our highlight event.
Guilting you on, people. Okay, now I'll go back into place.
All right, good job. No, James, you never need to go into place. Oh, wow, I'm highlighted. Okay, I am Erin Soderberg Downing, one of the Renegades of Middle Grade. And we're so excited. There's a ton of people who've signed up to be here tonight. So the Renegades are a group of friends and authors who love reading and writing middle grade. And we did a book tasting like this about a year ago and decided this would be the perfect week to do another one because it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And even though we can't give you, more money or gifts or whatever, we do want to give you our appreciation and our gratitude and just let you know how much we appreciate you, and especially appreciate that you took the time to be here tonight with us. So what we've got planned is there's 17 of us. So we're each going to take 2 to 3 minutes to show you either a recent or an upcoming book that we have coming out. A couple exciting things. Christina Diaz Gonzalez just won the Edgar Award, so we have to say yay for that. James Ponti just announced a new book deal today, which is also exciting. And then the first person who's going to present tonight has a book birthday today. So at the very end, because there's so many of us, we're not going to do Q&A just because we would go on for hours. And instead, what we want to do is recommend a book that we've recently read and enjoyed so that you can take something from our reading life and share it with your students and yourselves. So the first 3 presenters tonight are people who had books come out most recently in April. And the first is Henna Khan, who has 2 books to talk about. So if she goes a little over, we forgive her.
Great. Thank you so much, Erin. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am really excited to be celebrating a book birthday today. This is the book that just released, Super You, The Power of Flight, the first book in a new Pick Your Path series that I co-authored with my childhood friend, Andrea Manati. And in this, as you can kind of tell from the cover, you get a superpower and you make choices that will determine whether you go on a path to becoming a superhero or a supervillain. So hopefully lots of fun for readers. And it's the first in a series that we hope will involve lots of different powers. But I also had another book birthday just 2 weeks ago and was happy to launch Zara's Rules, a brand new series featuring Zara. And the first book is Zara's Rules for Record-Breaking Fun. And this features a kid who, Zara, who in this book loves to make rules and keep everything fair and make sure everyone is having fun. And that's what earns her the title Queen of the Neighborhood from her neighbor, which she likes very much. And the series was very much inspired by Ramona Quimby and her neighborhood and how much I loved reading about those kids and their antics and really wishing I was a part of the Quimby family and wishing I was on that street with all those kids. And I love that it was so much focused on, kid-centered problems and kid challenges. And in this case, Zara, I tried to emulate that spirit, and Zara feels threatened when a new family moves in across the street and a new girl, Naomi, has all these great ideas and everyone wants to do what she likes. So Zara decides that in order to assert her dominance and prove her place, she's going to break a Guinness World Record. And how many of us have tried to do that in our lives? I bet many of us have. Not necessarily understanding what it takes to break a Guinness World Record, but just deciding that that's a good thing to do. And so Zara learns through the course of the book and through various, hopefully funny attempts to break a world record that maybe it's better to share the crown and to do things with others than try to stand out alone. The series is very much based on my own life and my own neighbors, and Naomi and Michael, her brother, and the Goldstein family that moves in across the street is actually based on my childhood friends and neighbors, not named the Goldsteins, but our families grew up together, the kids of the family grew up together, and we were in each other's homes. And without calling it out as, a special interfaith relationship, it really was, and it remains a very beautiful and respectful friendship. So it was fun to include that. My friend Naomi did try to hula hoop for an hour without stopping, thinking that would break a record. And that inspired Zara trying to do the very same thing. And I won't spoil what disastrous thing happens to prevent that from happening in real life or in the book. The second book, Zara's Rules for Finding Hidden Treasure, comes out in October, and I just wanted to show you the beautiful new cover. All the art in this book is done by Wastano Heikel, and he's done a terrific job. There's lots of really fun action-filled art, and I really hope you all will enjoy Zara's Rules and Super You and share them with the readers in your life. Thank you so much. And now I'm excited to turn it over to Karina, who has a beautiful new book.
Hi, everyone. Okay. I had Zara's, the book, but I was going to hold it up and be very excited for Henna, but I have no idea where I put it, but I do have it and I love it. It's so good. And I'm so happy it's out in the world and that there's another one and that the cover is so great. So anyways, thanks, Henna. My name is Karina Yan Glaser. I am the author of the Vanderbeeker books. But my most recent one is actually a non-Vanderbeekers book. It's called A Duet for Home. And a lot of people have asked me whether it was weird to go to a standalone book after writing a series. And actually, this is the second book I wrote. And this was actually the second book that I was contracted to write from my publisher. It was supposed to come out right after the first Vanderbeekers book. But once the first book was in the hands of my publisher, they started wanting more books. And so this one kept on getting pushed off and off and off until finally it released last month. I'm so happy. So this book was inspired by experiences I had right out of college, where I worked for an organization that served homeless families in New York City. At the time, it was the largest provider of transitional housing for homeless families in New York City. We served about 540 families every night and over 2,000 kids. And when I worked there, I was really struck by how amazing and resilient the kids were, but at the same time, how challenging their life was. And one of the things that, a lot of the things I learned when I worked there for many years was things like busing the kids to the school that they had been in. But a lot of times they had to go, for many, many hours on the bus because the shelter that they were placed in was really far from their school. There was a housing policy during the time when I worked there that required families to be moved into permanent housing within 90 days of reaching the shelter. But what the government didn't tell them was that a lot of the housing was unsafe, no running water, a lot of reports of vermin or other problematic things in the housing situation. And so that comes up in the book as well. So the book is told in two perspectives. There's two characters, June and Tyrell. The book begins when June first enters the shelter system. It's her first day, and then it's Tyrell's third year of living there. So their perspectives are very different from one person who's been living there for a long time and one person who's just entering. And they start off their friendship starts out really bumpy, but as time goes by, they become fast friends and connect over music and become a real huge encouragement and support for each other. So time to pass it off to Erin, who, first of all, let's give her a round of applause for being just such a great organizer of this event. And let's just be really grateful for her and all the work she's done, and so excited about the Great Peach Experiment series. Yay.
Yeah, yes, let's all be grateful for Erin. We appreciate that.
Yes.
Um, thank you, Karina. So I have read A Duet for Home. I love it. I love it so much. She's one of my favorite authors, and actually was a huge inspiration to me as I was writing the Great Peach Experiment series. So my name is Erin Soderberg Downing. We have sun in Minnesota for the first time in like weeks, and it's coming at an inopportune time for me to show you stuff. But this series is about a family called the Peaches, who are basically experimenting with different ways that they can put themselves together after the loss of their beloved mother. So the first book is about the family's adventure in a food truck during the summer, trying to figure out how to reconnect. And the second book in the series came out 2 weeks ago, and I actually like it more than the first book. I'm super excited. I really get to know the kids in my series as I write them along. I just finished writing the third book in the series, which I think is even better than the second. But this one starts about a month after the first book ends. The family has returned to their hometown of Duluth, Minnesota, which happens to be my hometown. And they find out that their sort of kooky, eccentric great aunt, Lucinda, has decided that she is going to move out of her dilapidated old mansion and into a retirement community. And she wants to give the Peaches her house, on one condition, that they turn it into a working bed and breakfast. So the Peaches have their next big family experiment. And this one has sort of a secret cellar. It has these hidden staircases, an attic with a treasure map. And my favorite thing about this series is that each of the chapters is told from a different kid's point of view. So readers can really kind of connect with one of them. And I took that cue from Vanderbeekers and Penderwicks and other series like that I love so much. So a really quick story. One thing that readers will be excited about in the Great Peach Experiment is I've included a lot of recipes, including the recipe for Great Aunt Lucinda's peach pie that's featured in the first book. Well, this weekend, we decided we wanted muffins. So my son Henry was like, that's awesome. I'm going to follow Cousin Millie's famous apple muffin recipe. Now, this recipe was written by my now 16-year-old daughter. Well, Henry started stirring up the batter, and I said, that looks really weird. When you put the flour in, hopefully it's going to look more normal. And Henry's like, there is no flour in this recipe. It turned out I forgot to write the flour in the recipe that got printed in the book. So with this close circle of friends, I will fess up that there is an error in the book, which we will correct. So hopefully a lot of people will buy it so that we can run a reprint and make sure that the recipe gets corrected. So I am not polished and perfect, just like the Peaches. So apologies to anyone who tries. You will have some really watery, goobery, gluten-free apple muffins. All right, I'm handing it over to Jarrett.
Hey, thank you so much, Erin, and everyone for joining us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my Hunger Heroes series of graphic novel chapter books. These books are about a group of super heroic taco ingredients who help the kids of their city when they need a snack. So this first book is about a kid named Jason who missed breakfast. I don't tell you why, but he just is in school with no breakfast, and he has to take a math test, and he can't concentrate. He's losing focus, he's losing energy, and he is going to fail if the Hunger Heroes can't get him a snack in time. So here he is in the review for the math test, drifting off and dreaming of pizza and donuts. But what I want to tell you about briefly more is the sort of behind the scenes stuff of this book. And two things. The first is that it's a graphic novel chapter book. It is written with graphic novel comics and chunks of text here and there. And this is done very purposely to try to help a variety of readers, kids who read lots of graphic novels and maybe struggling to gain the confidence and skills to start reading chapter books, to start reading big blocks of text, and kids who maybe are not as visually literate as their friends who are devouring graphic novels and might need a little more text before they jump into reading more complicated pictures on the page in comic form. The other thing is that beneath the zany surface of these books, they are about empathy. They are about, as Mr. Toots, the fearless leader of the Hunger Heroes, says, understanding that there's always more to the story than meets the eye, whether that person is a teacher, a babysitter, a peer in your class who might be dealing with stuff at home that you can't even fathom or haven't considered, dealing with a peer who might be jealous and acting in ways that seem aggressive and villainous, but might actually just be from a much more complicated and even positive place. So that's the heart of the books beneath the farting beans and sweaty cheese. And the second book comes out in August. And if you want to make my whole day or week or month, you will pre-order it from our bookshop that's hosting us right now. And there should be a link right in there from the Country Bookshop. They keep putting it up. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to pass it off to the great Gordon Korman.
Thanks so much, Jarrett. Hi, everybody. I'm Gordon Korman, author of The Fort, which is my new book. It does not come with the reflection of my ring light when you get it your own copy from the Country Bookshop. But The Fort is basically the story of a group of kids who stumble on an old Cold War era bomb shelter, like fallout shelter that was built way back in the 80s, and they kind of adopt it. They make it their kind of hiding place and clubhouse and fort. So I guess it's just kind of like a, what if you found a place that was totally, I mean, completely 100% yours, and nobody knows this, no adults. The guy who built it is kind of out of the picture. Think like Stand By Me meets The Outsiders. That's not from me. That's actually, they said that at the marketing meeting. So, you know, I'm just testing it out for a test drive. The other thing about The Fort is actually, I'm pretty excited about this. It is my 100th book. You're probably thinking, you know, how can a youth such as yourself have written quite so many? I got a super early start in writing. My first book was actually my 7th grade English assignment. Check this out. In my middle school, the track coach had to teach English, and he had no idea what to tell us to do. And he basically said, okay, work on whatever you want for the rest of the year. And it was February. And we had a 45-minute class period to just write for like 4.5 months. And that's how I wrote my first book. Oh, by the way, I got a B+. They actually gave me A+ on the story, but deducted 1 grade for messiness. You know how I got it published? So I happened to be the class monitor for Scholastic book orders. Like back in the day, they used to let a kid run it for the entire class. So I'm thinking, I'm practically an employee of these guys to begin with, you know, keeper of the bonus points. Like that is a huge responsibility. The idea of book 100, I guess I didn't think it was going to be that much of a big deal, but now that it's sort of right around the corner, The Fort comes out June 28th, and I guess I'm really into it just because I know that if I could somehow go back to that 7th grade class and whisper in the ear of 12-year-old me working on book 1, that one day it's going to be book 100, I think that would totally blow that kid's mind. Anyway, thanks so much for having me tonight, and I will pass the baton to Alicia D. Williams.
I have to say this because I was just telling everyone that I was fangirling over Gordon when he came to my school when I was a teacher, and I just gotten a book deal for Genesis, and I'm the author of Genesis Begins Again. But Gordon, you do not know this, but on page 56, a student is giving his book report on No More Dead Dogs by Gordon Korman. Yes. So I'm not here to talk about Genesis. I do hope you read it, but I am here to talk about my picture book biography, Jump at the Sun. The ring light is not giving it the best light. The true life tale of unstoppable story catcher, Zora Neale Hurston. What I love, if you read Genesis, that you know I love history and I love stories. I was not introduced to folk tales until like college. And actually, I wasn't introduced to Zora Neale Hurston. And Zora Neale Hurston was a collector of folklore and cultural traditions and songs. And she traveled all over the back roads of of our country, as well as New Orleans, Bahamas, Haiti, all over collecting these stories in our folklore. Now, what I love about this is that for our educators, studies show that folk tales and telling these stories or tradition builds the brain and gets children ready for reader readiness. So with Zora Neale Hurston being a picture book biography, I do love the aspect that you get to learn all about her, not only about Zora Neale Hurston and her life, and you get to learn about the times of a sequence of events from the Harlem Renaissance, the music with the jazz legends that's mentioned, the dances that's mentioned. There's so many things to build out from this. And you have a mantra that children can latch onto, jump at the sun. And you can always get kids to understand, what does that mean? Jump at the sun, and how can you jump at the sun for yourself, for your family, for your community? I love this fact that there are hats in here. And the illustrator did a wonderful job with hats. Not only does Zora wear a bunch of hats during her lifetime, from student to anthropologist to story collector to a filmmaker, she did everything. But I think building out this fact that our children are told not to dream big and we put them in their labels, as her father did, stop trying to wear those big old hats. And her mother said, wore those big old hats and encouraged her to do it. That's something else that we can build our children up to be daring and persistent and adventurous. One thing I want to emphasize with picture books, a lot of people think that they're just so easy. And I learned this from another educator. Picture books are not necessarily easy. The text is not necessarily easy, especially with Zora because it's a longer text, but it breaks down on the page. So if you are an educator or if you're a librarian, know that your older readers can benefit from picture books because it presents the text in a way that they can break it down and feel more accomplished in reading, just like the graphic novels, right? They feel more accomplished in reading and they have the confidence to go and research the material in a bigger level on their own, especially with the learning curves that we're giving, allowing grace for our children during the pandemic, and their reading is behind. But anyway, I love Jump in the Sun. I'm a big advocate for it, so I hope you are too. And I love to pass this on to Supriya.
Thank you. I love Jump at the Sun too, I have to add. Thank you. I am excited to talk about That Thing About Bollywood, which comes out in exactly 1 week in paperback. And for those of you who don't know, Bollywood is the nickname for the Hindi film industry in India. And a lot of those movies are musicals. And the Bollywood movies from the 80s and 90s were oftentimes very melodramatic and very obvious about what the characters were thinking and feeling. And I love it. I grew up on it. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, I never got to see anyone who looked like me in any American media, in any movies, TV shows, books, commercials, junk mail, but Bollywood was the one place where I got to see people who look like me being heroes and being celebrated. So I grew up to be a Bollywood screenwriter for over a decade. I wrote Hindi movies, and I always wanted to figure out how to put my love for Bollywood into a book. And one day I was talking to Karina at Nerd Camp in Michigan, and our conversation really pushed me to try to come up with an idea even more. And I woke up with the idea for That Thing About Bollywood. And this is the story of a girl named Sonali who loves these old 80s and 90s melodramatic Bollywood movies. And she is terrible at expressing her feelings, and she really buries her emotions and her true thoughts down. And one day her parents announced that they are separating. And Sonali wakes up with a magical condition called Bollywooditis, which makes her express herself in the most obvious way possible through Bollywood song and dance numbers. And as the magic spreads and her whole world starts to turn Bollywood, she starts to lose her memories and the true feelings associated with them. So she has to figure out what is causing the magic and how to put a stop to it before it's too late. This is a book about serious things like divorce and illness, and it'll empower kids to find their voices. And it also has a lot of really funny moments and, of course, some Bollywood magic. So I hope you enjoy it, and I am really excited to pass it along to Janae Marks now.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Supriya. I'm Janae Marks, and today I'm going to talk to you about my second novel, A Soft Place to Land, which came out last fall. And this book tells the story of 12-year-old Joy, who is really into movie scores, so the music you hear in the background of your favorite movies. And her big dream is she kind of wants to learn how to play the piano so that one day she can compose her own movie score. But in the beginning of the story, she's going through a tough time because her dad was recently, unfortunately, laid off from his job, and her family had to then sell her house that she's grown up in her entire life and move into an apartment across town. And with that, there's a lot of changes. All of a sudden now she's sharing a room with her younger sister. There's, she's in tighter quarters and she's overhearing her parents argue a lot more. And on top of that, they can no longer afford her piano lessons. So she's just really upset. But in the beginning of the story, she makes a new friend in the building named Nora, who introduces her to a secret hideout, which is a space in the building that only the kids know about. And they can kind of go and spend time and, unwind. And as she's down there getting to know some of the neighbors' kids, she uncovers a mystery and sort of redefines her sense of home. So this book is a lot about, friendship and family and change, a lot about change, which I bet a lot of kids now can really relate to with what's been going on with the pandemic and changing schools. Everything's just been so different lately that I feel like kids should hopefully be able to relate to it. And just to give you a sense of what made me want to tell the story in the first place, I went through a similar move as Joy when I was in high school, so a little bit older than her, but it's different circumstances, but we ended up having to sell the house that I grew up in, and I moved with my mom to an apartment, and it was really hard. And so I wanted to kind of put a lot of those emotions and feelings about this change into a story. The rest of the book is definitely fictional, but a lot of my, my heart is in it. And another thing is, if you like dogs, there's dog walking in here too. So that's always fun too. So I hope you enjoy it. And now I'm going to pass it along to Alyson Gerber.
Hi, Janae. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Alyson Gerber. I am the author of Braced and Focused. And my latest book is called Taking Up Space. I'm also going to have the ring light problem, but you can see a little. The paperback comes out January 5th. This book was really hard to write for a lot of reasons, but it was also really fun to write. It is about a 7th grade girl whose name is Sarah, and she's an amazing basketball player. And she's struggling to feel good about her body and herself as she starts to go through puberty. Her body's changing, and she just doesn't feel the same on the court. She doesn't feel worthy in the way that she used to. And when I was writing Taking Up Space, I really had a difficult time because I had to dig into a lot of the feelings that I had growing up. It's a book that's based on my experience. I felt like I wasn't worth being loved or being fed. And I felt like most of my childhood was spent taking up a lot of space in the world. And so food started to really take up all the space in my mind. Taking Up Space is about what happens when the adults you depend on just aren't reliable. It's about how bad information about food and bodies gets passed down from generation to generation, and we sort of live with the bad information and the misinformation, and then as confused kids try to make sense of it. It's about learning to trust that you're worth believing in, even on the days you don't win or you don't get picked, and finding the courage to stand up for what you deserve. And finding the courage to love yourself. May is actually Mental Health Awareness Month. And mental health awareness is extremely important to me. As some of you may know, my books Focused and Braced are also based on my experience, focused on having undiagnosed ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, until I was 21. And Braced is about the 2.5 years I spent in a back brace. I brought my back brace so that everybody could see an example. I'm just going to say this while holding the brace, that my mental health was never made a priority, ever. And so when I went to go write Taking Up Space, one of the things that I really thought a lot about was how disordered eating, like my relationship with food, was how I coped with all the things I was going through, how I coped with not understanding my own brain, how I coped with being trapped in a back brace. And what I really wanted from this book, which I hope and I think that I achieved, was to create a story where every kid could walk into the story and see a person who's not diagnosed with anything, but who still really, really needs help. And I hope and I think readers will come away feeling like they matter. And like, even if there isn't a diagnosis, even if there isn't a name for what they're going through, that they deserve to get the help they need and that they can and should ask for help. Thank you. And wait, who am I passing it off to? I forget. This is terrible. Christina! Edgar Award winning.
Me.
Christina.
You forgot all about me, and we had dinner last week. I can't believe it.
I would never forget you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alyson. Alyson's books are all phenomenal. I am here. First of all, thank you. Thank you, Erin, from the beginning, congratulating me on the Edgar. It was for Concealed, which was my most recent book that came out. But I'm actually here to talk to you about a book that can be pre-ordered. Doesn't come out until August, but it is Invisible. It is my graphic novel, illustrated by Gabriella Epstein. And it's the story of, basically, easiest way to describe it, The Breakfast Club set in middle school. But in addition to being The Breakfast Club, where you have 5 very different kids, you have the jock, the brain, the tough kid, the rich kid, the loner. All 5 are Spanish-speaking students with different levels of English fluency. One of them barely speaks any Spanish. 3 of them are ESOL or ELL kids. And so the book begins after something has happened and all 5 kids are being questioned. And each one picks up at a different part of the story as they recount the events that led up to this big thing that they are all being questioned about. And when it comes time for the 3 ESOL kids, and even the one kid who is basically fully bilingual, she's about to be mainstreamed into regular classes, well, they require having the Spanish teacher translate because the person questioning them doesn't understand. So the book ends up becoming almost fully bilingual, but it's not a translated version of an English speaking story. The translation is actually part of the story. And for me, that was really important. It's rare to see the ESOL community, the kids who are learning English for the first time, be represented as the main characters of a story. And not only that, it also empowers kids who both speak English and Spanish to be able to see the contributions they can make. And for me, it was very important. I was born in the US, but my parents chose to teach me Spanish first because they wanted me to be fully bilingual. So I didn't learn how to speak English until I started school. And so I still remember that feeling of being lost, of realizing that no one could understand anything I was saying. And I grew up in a community where I was the only Spanish-speaking, part of the only Spanish-speaking family. So if someone didn't understand me, they had to call my parents. And so I really wanted to write a story that incorporated these kids. And in addition to those 5 kids, and in addition to speaking Spanish, each one has a secret. And there are issues of homelessness and learning disabilities and not knowing where you're going to live next, socioeconomic conditions, all sorts of issues are depicted because each child has a secret that they would rather not share with the world. But in the end, they have to decide if sharing that secret is worth helping someone else. So that is my upcoming book in August, Invisible. I also have another book in September, The Bluest Sky, which is right there, which is historical fiction, but we'll leave that for another day. Today, focusing in on Invisible, and now I'm going to hand it off to the wonderful Lisa McMann.
Thank you, Christina. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa McMann. You might know me from the Unwanted series, which I am happy to report is done. So all 14 books are out and in the world. So if you're one of those people who likes to wait until the series is done, now's your chance. But I'm going to talk to you today about my new series for middle grade. It is called The Forgotten Five. Map of Flames is book 1, and it just came out in February. And I'm really excited about this series because I got to explore supernatural kids, but not in an Incredibles way, which I love the Incredibles. I love that there are kids who are supernatural, but I really wanted to explore what it's like to be a kid of one of the supernatural villains. So I wrote this book about these 5 kids who were born in a secret criminal supernatural hideout. And they'd never seen civilization before. They've been in this tropical island their whole lives. And they enter civilization for the first time in search of their missing criminal parents. So the book begins with a funeral. And it was the funeral of the last parent to remain with these kids in this secret hideout. About 3 years before the book begins, 7 of the 8 parents go off in search of supplies and also in search of each other when the first group doesn't come back. And then 1 parent remained, Lewis Golden, the father of 2 of the kids. And he has recently gotten sick and passed away. And so the kids have just buried their last parent. And Birdie, the oldest, who's holding the map, she goes through her father's things and she finds a note. And the note says, "Dear Birdie, I want you to go to Estero, the city where they were from, and find your mother and tell her I did my best." Now, Birdie is absolutely thrown by this. She didn't know that her dad thinks mom is in Estero. And Estero is a dangerous place for supernatural people. It's actually against the law to be supernatural in Estero, and you could end up in jail. So the kids had all planned to stay in this secret hideout forever. But now Birdie has this note from dad saying mom is there. And of course she wants to go find her. And then she finds a scroll all rolled up. She opens it and it bursts into flames. And she realizes her father has put a flame charm on the map. And when the flames die down, she sees that it's a map to Estero, but also to the missing treasure that the parents had left behind 15 years ago. So now Birdie has a job. She's got to convince the other kids that it's okay to go back to Estero, and we can maybe find our parents there. But since some of the kids are visibly supernatural, it's very dangerous for them. They could get caught and arrested. So and also they're going back to a place where they've never been before. They don't know anything about technology or electricity. So there's kind of an Encino Man little thing going on there too, where they've got to figure out how everything works. So that's my new series. And I just wanted to mention too that I'm going to be doing some visits around the country this summer. And if you are going to the Ohio Nerd Camp, I'll be there. I'm going to be doing a visit in my hometown of Holland, Michigan, and Grand Rapids, Michigan as well, I think. And then maybe a stop in Boston and Connecticut. So doing a little touring. I hope you can come if you are in the area. And now over to Jen Calonita. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Lisa. I literally just was thinking to myself, I need to order the book tonight from Country Bookstore because I cannot wait to read Map of Flames. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Calonita. I am the author of the Fairy Tale Reform School series. This is Flunked. But tonight I wanted to give you a little taste of what I call my pandemic baby. This is the retake, which actually just came out in paperback a few weeks ago. The retake is about a girl named Zoe. Zoe has just returned from summer vacation. It is the start of 6th grade. It is the start of middle school. She is so excited to be with her best friend. And she gets to the first day of school and realizes she's been best friend dumped. Her best friend has gone to a new lunch table. She's hanging out with a new group of girls who spend a lot of time figuring out what their next social media post is going to be and how to pose perfectly on Instagram. And Zoe is devastated. And her day just goes from bad to worse because she takes her phone out to look at her schedule because she's lost. She gets her phone confiscated. She has to get it back from the main office at the end of the day. And there's a substitute secretary in the office who gives her phone back. When she gets her phone back, she notices there's a strange new app on her phone that looks a lot like Instagram, but actually has backward arrows on all of her social media posts. When she clicks on one of those arrows, what she quickly realizes is that she can time travel back to moments from her social media past. And as we all know from any time travel movie, TV show, book, when you time travel, things never go the way you want them to. And what Zoe quickly decides, she has to figure out, does she want to change to be someone that her former best friend and new group of friends would like, or does she want to be true to herself? What is more important? So I think the book is warm and funny, but what I really like is that it talks a bit about social media, which is something I feel like we don't talk enough about with kids and even as adults. And it's important for kids to realize that an Instagram post is a 1-second snapshot in time, probably with filters and a ring light like I have right here. And it's important for kids to be true to themselves and not always worry about what everybody else is doing online. And so that's a little taste of the retake. And I'm going to hand it over to Beth McMullen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Erin. I know hosting and organizing is not for the faint of heart, and your effort is super appreciated. And thank you to all of you for joining us, and to the Country Bookshop for hosting us. So I'm Beth McMullen. I'm the author of the Mrs. Smith Spy School for Girls series, the Lola Banco Treasure Hunter series, and most recently, this one, Secret of the Storm, which came out on March 1st, and is the first of a series about cats and dragons. This is the book I want to talk to you about today. So I am an unapologetic cat person, pet person, cats, dogs, birds, fish, lizards, snakes, whatever. I feel like the love we give and receive from our furry, scaly, feathery friends is unlike any other kind. So Secret of the Storm was inspired by my black cat, who is a total menace and is literally outside of my door, scratching, trying to come in here with me, but I'm keeping her out there because she is a menace and she will knock everything to the ground and create chaos. So what happened was that I was looking at this cat, and in this moment, I became completely convinced that she was a tiny dragon in disguise. She looks exactly like Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon, if you've ever seen that movie. And once I had this idea in my head that this cat was a dragon, well, that was it. I know you guys can relate to this. It was in there and it was going to drive me bananas unless I wrote the book. So here we are. So Secret of the Storm is about Cassie, who is in 7th grade. And Cassie has lost her father to an accident, is slowly losing her mother to the overwhelming grief, and is watching her best friend turn into someone she doesn't recognize. And against this backdrop, she finds a kitten in a dumpster after a freak storm, and she names him Albert. And Albert turns out to be so much more than he appears. And their friendship fills a lot of the emptiness that Cassie has been experiencing since her father's death. And Albert even brings her together with a boy named Joe, who is potentially a new best friend for Cassie. And when Cassie and Joe discover that Albert is in trouble, they team up to save him by unraveling a mysterious prophecy, even if doing so means that they have to believe things that don't seem at all possible. I mean, I generally see my brand as escapism, which is what I gravitate toward as a reader. The world is full of so much stress and anxiety, and being able to step off that bus, even for 250 pages, is invaluable. So my books have action, adventure, humor, mystery, friendship. Secret is the first time that I've added an element of fantasy, which has been so fun for me as a writer that I'm not sure that I'm ever going to write anything that doesn't have fantasy elements in it anymore. Secret of the Storm 2 comes out March 2023. And I'm pretty sure it has my best cliffhanger yet. I'm sure readers are always mad at me for my cliffhangers, and this one I'm like a little afraid of how it's going to go over, but I'm sticking with it. So thank you again for being here. And now I'm thrilled to turn it over to Lisa Fipps.
Why do I always do that to myself? Thank you very much. I will talk briefly about Starfish. Starfish is a book in verse, and it's about Ellie, who is bullied relentlessly because she's fat. And she learns through some great allies and her therapist she learns how to take up her space in the world. And so she learns that she has the right to be seen, to be noticed, to be heard. And that's such an important message, especially for anyone who has never felt seen or heard or noticed. And I know the reason I wrote this book was because this was the book I needed as a kid, and it didn't exist. And when I grew up and started writing books, it still didn't exist. And so I wrote it. And so anyway, that's Ellie. And because we all keep talking about our cats and our dogs and our animals, because that's just who we are, this is Gigi, the absolute Gigi from the book. So if you've read the book and you hear about Ellie's ally friend, her pet, Gigi, that's my Gigi. And she was, I lived right by Dallas Fort Worth Airport, like 3 miles away. And she never chased a car, but she chased every airplane in the sky. And she was like bananas about it. And she was also bananas about bananas. So that's another story. I'm trying to keep it quick here because there's some other authors here, but I also have a book coming out next year. I don't have any images to show you, but it'll be a novel in verse. I'm currently on deadline with revisions. And so it is about the central themes are poverty, abandonment, mental illness. There's a hint toward addiction, and then children who raise themselves. And that sounds like a lot, but really it's all part of one whole thing. And if you are a teacher, you will understand how all that often plays together. And so it's about a boy named Joe, and you will get to hear his story, hopefully. So I can't remember when, in 2023. And it will also be a novel in verse. And so anyway, I make it short and sweet and to the point. And there you go. And I'm supposed to pass it on to Kate.
Lisa, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry. I had to sign in from my phone and I didn't realize I wasn't muted for a couple minutes there. And I hope I was not obnoxious. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. And I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you to Country Bookshop and everyone. I am here to talk about Raconteur's Commonplace book, which if you have encountered any of my books before, there's a high chance you have encountered Green Glass House. And Green Glass House has a character named Milo who is given a copy of a book when a whole bunch of people are sort of snowed into the inn his parents run. He is given a copy of the Raconteur's Commonplace book, which is this book of folklore set in this very oddball city called Nagspeak, where a lot of my books take place. And so this is that book. It is a collection of folklore, but it's also a mystery novel, a self-contained mystery novel, in which all of the stories told by the different guests who are flooded into an inn, this really beautiful inn here that Jamie Zollers drew, they tell stories to pass the time in the vein of Canterbury Tales or Holly Tree Inn. And as you read the book, little by little, you realize that the stories that are being told and the storytellers who are telling them are all pieces in this puzzle that begins to come together, and you can see kind of the bigger picture taking place and the very strange things that are happening in this inn. And I wish I had thought that I could get through reading you a little bit, but I'm certain I would run way over time. But I do want to say, like, one of my favorite things about this book, it is connected to all of the other books in this shared universe, but it really is truly a standalone. So if you've not read any of my other weirdo books, this is a perfectly, it would be a wonderful place to start. Also, for teachers out there, there's 15 different stories that are told from 15 different storytellers, and they really range in sort of like they run the gamut of folklore and fairy tales. They get into riddling, but riddling in like the folkways sense. They get into fairy tales. They get into, you know, trickster tales, and, you know, there's a Devil at the Crossroads story, which will surprise no one who has read any of my books. So there really is sort of like, there are very different styles and very different tellers, and most of them are short enough that they can be read alouds in a classroom, if you like. And I loved what Alicia said about the importance of folklore. And for me, folklore has been such a huge part of what has inspired so many of my books. And it was really fun to get a chance to dig in and play around with all of these different types of folklore. And because I am on my phone, I was not able to start the timer. So I am not sure where I am in terms of time. But I would like to read you just the very, very first paragraph of the first story in here, which is, the first story is The Game of Maps. And this illustration is by the amazing Nicole Wong. And this is the folklorist's tale. And it goes or begins like this. Listen. There was a city that could not be mapped, and inside it, a house that could not be drawn. It stood at the bottom of a hill on a street called Fellwool, a lane with broken pavement that had been overgrown and mostly hidden by ancient knotty pines. It was the kind of house that in simpler times might have been called enchanted or haunted or cursed. These houses appear now and then in towns and cities that will tolerate them. Sometimes they survive, sometimes they do not. And this house, the house in which this tale takes place, had survived for many, many years. It had copper pipes that reached down into the earth like roots. Its woodwork had taught its stonework how to breathe.
I suspect that her internet may have gone out again. So sorry, Kate, you've been cut off. She's back.
I'm back? Am I there?
You're back.
All right. Well, I don't know. Did I at least drop off at a really dramatic point that makes you want to buy the book so you can hear the rest of the story?
It was perfect. It was an awesome teaser.
Spectacular. Then I'm going to just go ahead and not run any more risks and hand it off to the amazing Jake Burt.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate that. It's great to follow another mystery author, because the book that I'm going to be talking about today is The Ghoul of Windy Down Vale, which is my first horror mystery novel for upper middle grade readers. And the book, here we go, seeks to explore a couple of big themes. The first of these themes, which I will try to say in as spooky and as low a voice as I possibly can, is: what is the line between a legend and a lie? And the second theme that it seeks to explore is what happens when we discover the history upon which we pride ourselves is built on a foundation of horrors. So there you go. It also it stars a kid, 14-year-old Copper Innskeep, who is the titular ghoul. He dresses up in a gruesome costume and goes out into the swamps surrounding his village every day or every night to try to scare people away from the dangers of the swamp. He takes pride in that role. Even though it's a secret, very hush-hush, only a few people in the town know that he is the ghoul, he views himself as kind of a hero because he saves people. The problem is, in the very first chapter, a girl runs into town, terrified to death, claiming that she and her father were attacked by the ghoul, and her father, in fact, was dragged off into the swamps by the ghoul. Copper knows that that can't be the case because he is the ghoul, and he's never met this girl before, and he certainly didn't drag her father out into the swamps. So he's got this mystery to solve right off the bat, but the problem is the mystery doesn't stay contained to his family's little inn. It spreads as the news of this girl's father's disappearance spreads, and it attracts the attention of the world's most renowned and deadly monster hunter, who shows up in Windy Down Vale in order to rid the Vale of its ghoul problem. The ghoul problem is, of course, my poor main character. So there is the mystery and the problem that he has to solve as the problem in turn tries to solve him. It was a lot of fun to write. My favorite part of the book is the fact that just when a reader thinks they have the mystery figured out, just when my main character thinks he has the mystery figured out, just when you think you're going to get that satisfaction of saying, oh, I knew it. I knew it the whole time. I had it figured out by chapter 2. Hopefully the book throws everything that you thought you knew out the window with one hellacious plot twist. So look forward to that. If you've got young readers who enjoy a little bit of spooky, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of mayhem, and a little bit of mud, The Ghoul of Windy Down Vale is the book for them. And speaking of people who write mysteries and people who have won Edgar Awards for their mysteries, I will turn it over to Granddaddy Renegade, James Ponti.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to see you. My name is James Ponti. I have bad lighting, and so I apologize for that. I am the author of the City Spies books. There's City Spies, there's Golden Gate, and the newest book is, what is it called? Yeah, Forbidden City. So those are the 3 books in the City Spies series. It's a series about 5 kids from around the world who fall through the cracks and get adopted by a spy and raised as a family of spies. But the book I want to talk about tonight is actually a book that I'm just a contributor on. It's called Hope Wins. It comes out 1 week from today. And Hope Wins is a collection of 22 nonfiction stories written by some of your favorite middle grade authors, and me. I'm thrown in there with your favorites. People who you've seen tonight, like Gordon Korman and Karina and Glaser, and so many. And it comes out a week from today. It supports all the money is going to the North Texas Teen Book Festival, which is, to be honest, how this group came to be, because a lot of us met there. I went there and I just kept following Lisa McMann around, hoping that she would notice me and say hello to me. I met Karina there. I met Hena there. I met so many people there. And it's just, the book is really fun because all these writers have talked about times when hope played an important part in our lives. Most of us talking about that time from middle school. And I think we are in an era where kids really need to hear these messages of hope. And they're so affirming, and some of them are funny, and some of them are touching, and some will break your heart. But all of them will remind you that hope does win. So please think of getting this for your classroom, for your summer reading. Hope Wins, so much fun. So good a book. And I just want to say, because I'm the last one, I get to kind of just talk a little bit. I love these people you've been listening to tonight. And I say that without anything other than total affection. They are some of the best people I know. They're amazing writers, and you know that. And we love you. The people who are spending an hour of this time, you know, so many of you are teachers. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. We're so grateful for you. That was actually the reason it's time for me to take my medicine. That's the reason we wanted to do this week. And more than ever, you are being challenged about books and tested on your job, on top of COVID, on top of all these other things. So just know that we are there, and we feel it, and we're empathetic, and we would love to help if we can figure out ways to help. But don't forget how much we love you and how important we think you are for everything. So thank you for spending this time with us today. We're not wrapping up. I'm wrapping up, but I'm supposed to give it back to Erin, I think. And then Erin's gonna ask us some question that probably is much smarter than anything I just said. But thank you guys so much for joining us tonight.
All right, awesome. James,
You're
you're the founder of this. We are so grateful to you because you are literally like the cog that holds us all together. James literally knows all of us. And so the rest of us have gotten connected because of him. So that is why I guess we call him Granddaddy Renegade. Okay, so a couple housekeeping things. Country Bookshop, you can put us all back on just so that we can see everybody again. We're going to send out an email tomorrow from Country Books with links so you can buy these books, a link to a video recording of the presentation so you can share it with your students, other teachers who you know, book lovers, etc. And then I wanted to say thank you to Country Books because this takes a ton and they have 3 people working behind the scenes to make this thing happen. So please order books from them. And then since it's Teacher Appreciation Week, a bunch of us are doing giveaways. So check out our Renegades of MG Twitter feed and you'll find some of those there. Okay. We still have, does everybody else still have James big on the screen?
I am big. I'm
Yeah.
big everywhere I go.
You are.
Well, if I'm
You're
big on the screen still.
a
If
lot
I'm
of
big, what I'm gonna
personality,
say-
so you deserve it. But what
Country
we were
Bookshop
gonna
is so amazing. Everyone needs to really support their local independent bookstores because that's the only way that you would find out about our books. You wouldn't any other way. And Country now, look who's big. Oh,
now
yeah.
it's me.
But yes. So thank you to Country. Now back to you, Erin.
Okay, so put us all on so that everybody doesn't have to look at my face and my toys behind me. What I wanted to do really quick, anyone can drop off if you want, but some of us wanted to share some books that we've been reading because in addition to being middle grade writers, we are also middle grade readers. So this is kind of rude because most people can't get this yet, but I just read Hummingbird by Natalie Lloyd. It comes out in September. I'm a huge fan of Natalie Lloyd's, and this is her best book yet. It is about a girl named Olive who lives in a town that has a magical hummingbird that comes to visit and grants someone a wish. And just like all of her books, it's got so much personality in the characters, in the place. So I'm really excited to share that one. Okay, let's go to Lisa McMann. Do you have something to share?
Sorry about that.
Hopefully. There we
Yes,
go.
I do. Hi, everybody. I am recommending to you a book that's from a small publisher, but it won a Sidney Taylor Notable Award. This is Sorry for Your Loss by Joanne Levy, who writes this beautiful story of a family who owns a Jewish funeral home. And Evie is a little bit bullied because of that. You know, she gets the "you smell like death" jokes and stuff like that. But she meets a boy who has just suffered a traumatic loss. And while the boy is learning how to deal with his loss, Evie is learning how to be a friend to someone who's just suffered a great loss. And I just love this story, not only because it's really meaningful and we've all experienced some loss recently, but also because it has some really great jokes. And Joanne is just amazing at being funny when things aren't funny, and it really works. So I hope you all check it out. Sorry for Your Loss, Joanne Levy.
Okay, James, you're the next person down on my.
Hi, how you doing? My name
Hello.
is James.
Welcome
and
back.
So, I would like to. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna do 3 because I think they're important. And if I had more that I could reach, I would grab those. Focus by Ali Gerber, Ali G, the great Ali G. She mentioned it earlier, but in case you weren't here, in case you missed it, please get that thing about Bollywood. One of the things that we lose in this book got overlooked because of COVID. A lot of the books you hear about tonight got overlooked because of COVID, and it's really a shame, but it's really, really worth it. So check this out. And those who live in Florida or who know that Christina Diaz Gonzalez and I have this like fake like WrestleMania feud going on for the last 5 years, which of course is not real. I think she's amazing and wonderful. So get her new book, Invisible. Pre-order it from the Country Bookshop. Give it to your students, you know, after you've gotten mine and Lisa Phipps's books. Let's be honest. Those are more important for you to get. But get Lisa, then me, then get Christina. All right, and now whoever's next.
Okay, let's go to Supriya, then Christina, and then Alyson to fit in with James's recommendations.
Sorry, I got caught off guard. So I am just starting this book by Karina, and it is so beautiful and so moving. So I know she already talked about it, but I really highly recommend this. Oh, I didn't even say the title, A Duet for Home. Beautiful. All right.
All right, who did I say next? I said Christina Diaz. Is she still here?
I'm here.
Okay, yay.
So, yes, James and I have this pretend feud. He is like my online nemesis on Twitter right around when the Florida conference comes up, and we talk a lot of smack, but he really is a dear friend, and I love and respect him. Although if you ask me to say it again, I will deny it to my dad. But I actually have 2 books on my night table that I just got. Friends with these authors, can't wait to be reading it. One just came out, one has been around a while, just haven't gotten to reading it. This is from a renegade who is not here, Kwame Mbalia. Last Gate of the Emperor, also written by Prince Joel Makonnen. Can't wait to read this one. Amazing. Kwame is a wonderful person. Better than James, but you know, whatever. No, he's wonderful in his own right. And then I'm also on my night table is Witchlings by Claribel Ortega. She just got on the New York Times with this. Wonderful book. Have heard so many great things about it. Can't wait to read both of these books. And now I think I'm handing it over to
Alyson. Let's do Alyson and
Look,
then
I
Jarrett.
forgot you this time.
It's just the
Hey,
cycle
by
of
the way,
life.
I love Alyson. Alyson also is one of my dear friends, which I think James has become jealous of, a little bit of jealous of our friendship, because I got to see her while I was in New York.
James, you're up next. This is the book that I'm recommending. If you haven't read Show Me a Sign, I read it a while ago, but I love it so much. It's such important and special book, and it's historical fiction, so something a little special and different for me, because I don't write that. So I love historical fiction even more. But I just think it's such an important book, and anyway, so I love it. It's a Scholastic book also, so I highly recommend this one.
All right, we're gonna do Jarrett, followed by Henna, and then Janae.
All right, so I second every single book brought up by a renegade here tonight. I've read almost all of them, except for the ones that have just come out, and they're all fabulous. If you're looking for something else, I have been delighting over Mayor Goodboy, which is a graphic novel, a middle grade graphic novel, and it takes up the absurd premise of a mayor, a dog winning a mayoral election in a city. And it seems absurd, but honestly, it's kind of a fantasy for me, because I think dogs at this point could do much better running our country and our cities. So Mayor Goodboy.
Okay, who did
I
I say? is
had
next,
also
Henna?
grabbed Hope Wins, so another endorsement for this beautiful book. And I recently read How to Find What You're Not Looking For, which was, of course, a Sydney Taylor Book Award. If you haven't read it, I know it takes a bit to get through all the award winners, but it's really, really beautifully written. I'm a huge fan of Vera, and I think she knocked it out of the park. So one of my favorites for this year, if you haven't read it yet. I forgot who's after me.
Janae, she's muted.
I was
There you
muted.
go.
I started talking and then realized I was muted. So I'm going to recommend a book that I just finished reading this week, but it's out next week. It's Hope Wins by Jennifer Bletcher. It's about a girl who dreams of going to a sleepaway camp, and she finally gets to go. But it turns out it's a camp for famous kids, and she's not famous. So it's super fun if you like camp, if you like, you know, what it's like to be famous kids. And so yeah, super fun. Out next week.
All right, let's hear from Alicia and then Jen Calonita.
So I hate to say this, but it's so hard because so many great books, but lately I've been reading adult fiction. But the last great book of middle grade that I read, as if it needs any more promotion, because it just won the Newbery at the time. I love how Tay had interspersed the folklore in this story in a modern tale. So if you haven't checked that out, it's a Korean story. And it just opens up a different, I think we all need to read diversely. And I just put this on my nightstand, the Rey Bear. I know I'm late for it. I think so many people said they loved it. So I just started it, a fantasy, which I'm trying to branch out of my world of realistic fiction and just join the world of so much of what everybody writes here, fantasy and fun stuff.
Me, my turn. Okay. Hi, I cannot wait to get my hands on Hope Wins. But actually, what I just finished reading, which I don't have in my possession because I've already handed it off, is Allie's Taking Up Space. I absolutely loved it. I wanted my niece to read it. And I know this is going to sound terrible to say, but I was so desperate for her to read it because it felt so relevant to her age. And I actually offered a bribe. I said, if you read it, Aunt Jen will get you whatever you want. And she took the book for me and she actually said, you know what, Aunt Jen, I loved it. I really loved it. And she read it in like 2 days. So Taking Up Space by Alyson Gerber is the last great book I read.
Okay, who do we have left? Kate, Lisa, and oh my gosh, and Karina, yes. Oh, and Jake. All right, there you go.
All right, I was struggling to remember because I've been stuck in research reading land, the books that I have finished recently. So I got two, actually, one that I just finished that is an adult one, but I think like it's great and we all need a break. And this is like super fun reading. So, which is Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee, which is basically an art heist book. And it is absolutely like just delightful and also has a lot of really thought-provoking stuff, but I just finished that one yesterday. But my next up, which I'm super excited about, is Wendy Xu's Tide Song. And I read Mooncakes last year. This is graphic novel. Absolutely, she's fantastic. But she does these wonderful fantasy and folklore-based graphic novels, at least so far. And I'm super excited for this one. So that'll be a fun one. If you are looking for a wonderful fantasy graphic novel, it's very dreamy and very excited for it. That's my next step.
Go for it. Anybody who's left, fight it out. Duke it
Okay,
out.
I'll go. All right. She's not here today, but she is a renegade. Christina Soon Turned Vat. I love this book. I listened to it on audio and it's narrated beautifully by Sierra Sue. So definitely pick this one up. She's also not here, but a renegade. And this is the most recent Newbery winner, The Last Quintista. I loved it. And I'm generally not like a sci-fi person, but I adored it. And finally, The Lucky Ones, Linda Williams Jackson. I loved her trilogy that started with Midnight Without a Moon. This is a historical fiction set in 1967 in the Mississippi Delta, which is, I don't think I've ever read a historical book set in that era and in that area. So I love this one. Definitely check it out.
I have mine on my phone because I'm running out of book space in my home. So I've kind of started putting stuff on my phone, but it's called A Bird Will Soar. And it's by Allison Green Myers, and it's a Schneider Family Book Award. But the thing about this, it's so well written. But if you know Highlights Magazine, she is one of the many people who are part of that family. And so if you like highlights and if you're a writer, if you've ever been to the Highlights Foundation workshops, you've probably met her. But anyway, it's really, really well written. And it's, so A Bird Will Soar.
Am I up?
Yeah.
Can I be up? Should I be up?
You're up.
Okay. I am reading a couple of books right now. One is a book for grown-ups that when I picked it up, I thought it was for middle grade readers or for kids. It's Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. And I thought it was for kids because it's got a cute little hedgehog on the front. I should have read the reviews, which call it horrifyingly disturbing. It is. So if you like that sort of thing, go ahead and pick it up. It was also a National Book Award or something like that, New York Times Book Review Best Book of 2020 or something like that. The book I'm reading for middle grade readers, I picked up because I have a student who asked me earlier this year, Mr. Burt, do you have any books about Jewish kids who are not persecuted for being Jewish kids? And I thought for a while, and I looked through my classroom library. I teach 5th grade, and I couldn't really find anything that fit that bill. But then I picked up Shabbat Sabotage by Emma Carlson Byrne, who is a very good friend of mine, or another writer from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm reading this one, really enjoying it. It's about a mystery at a Jewish summer camp, and it features Jewish kids, but it's not about them being persecuted for being Jewish. They're just kind of Jewish and kids at summer camp trying to solve a mystery. A lot of questions about what is bravery and what is the right thing to do when you're faced with social decisions and then decisions of morality. And I'm really enjoying it, and I'm sure my students will as well.
You guys, this is terrible, but did I miss anyone? I was not keeping good track and record. Are we good?
You didn't miss me, but I want to do more than one too, because everybody else is. So I'm just going to mention The Marvelers is out today. It's a brand new book by Danielle Clayton. And this is like Harry Potter with a lot of diversity. So pick it up. It's way better and awesome, and you're going to love it.
All right. Well, one final plug to Country Bookshop. We also are going to send out a list of these recommendations. But that's probably going to follow up a little bit later because I'll have to recollect all of those. But we will get all of this stuff out, and our hope is to do another event like this in the fall so that this can hopefully be like a twice a year thing, because we have a lot of great books to talk about. I mean, I'm kind of in awe. Totally forgot everything I was going to say tonight because I'm surrounded by like these like amazing authors that I admire so much. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Anybody, James, did you have one more to say?
I just have to be real quick because I promised someone I would mention. So yeah, a new book deal was announced for me today, which I didn't know would happen, so I wasn't going to say. But since I said I would talk about it, it's a mystery book set in Miami. And the only reason I'm setting a mystery book in Miami is so I can go and just stay at Christina Diaz Gonzalez's house all the time. And that's really kind of, I wrote a whole series just based on annoying Christina in person, which if you knew me would seem believable. All right, now I'm done.
That's perfect. Thanks for getting us together, James. And thank you, Country Bookshop. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you for
Thank
letting
you,
us
Country
be a part of the
Bookshop, so
evening.
much.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.